Hey everybody, we're the Menschwarmers. I'm Jamie. I'm here with my co-host Gabe. Gabe, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. It's a beautiful week, winter's week in Toronto. I was in our nation's capital this weekend. We were off last week. We had a great time at the UJA Major Donors event, sort of in downtown Toronto with a couple of Jewish basketball legends, Tamir Goodman, Bruce Pearl, Amari Stoudemire. We had a blast.
Yeah, we should talk about that a little bit. Thank you to anyone who is listening, who is directed here by by our content there, or by the UJA. Shout out to us. It was a great event. It was UJA's Major Gifts event in Toronto, and it featured in attendance Tamir Goodman, aka the Jewish Jordan, Emily Austin, and Bruce Pearl.
The first of many Jewish Jordans.
That's right. The first dubbed Jewish Jordan, dubbed by Jeff Perlman, who's previously a guest on our podcast when he used to write for SI. Bruce Pearl, who has just recently stepped down as the coach of Auburn. Amari Stoudemire was also part of the talk. Couldn't be in attendance, I think, because he is a child being born very soon, but was there on Zoom. He does Zoom calls from it looks like he's in the synagogue library, truly 300 Sidurs behind him kind of thing.
He's got a really spectacular, what seems to be Siddur collection, as you said, like my rabbi's office.
Yeah, exactly.
Is roughly that aesthetic. It's just a wall of books. If you follow Amar on Instagram and see his weekly Parsha reading, you'll see what his office looks like. And quite holy is how I would describe it.
It was great to connect with Coach Pearl. Hopefully he will be on the podcast in the not too distant future. He was very willing to come on, I would say.
He and I had a great conversation about Todd Golden and John Shire. His other Jewish Final Four coaches from last year. He is quite close with both of them. Both of them are former Bruce Pearl players at the Maccabi sporting event. Bruce mentioned it was the proudest moment of his coaching career was coaching that Maccabi team to a gold medal. I actually got to tell him something that a friend of mine from university went to high school with John Shire, and watched their all Jewish starting lineup, the High Five, something Bruce Pearl claimed not to know about. He thought I made it up, but it's true.
Right. The High Five, the starting basketball team. Anyways, it was really interesting to hear Coach Pearl talk about his, outspoken support for Israel and the sort of position that put him in as a head coach. And hopefully we get him on the show to talk about that, talk through those stories as well. And really nice to touch base with some of the great donors to Jewish causes locally, some of our great Toronto Jewish donors. Just to tie a knot on what we were talking about in our last podcast. Obviously, the Blue Jays did not pull it off. I think that we're just getting over it now.
Sean Green series went the way of Sean Green, which is from Toronto with the last minute to LA.
That's right. If there's any condolence for Jewish sports fans who are rooting for the Jays, there was a lot of Sandy Koufax at the games in LA. Great to see him out there
for 18 innings. Sandy's still going strong.
Yeah. Always great to see. I mean, it's amazing. I don't know if anyone is more associated with one team for as long in a post-playing career as Sandy Koufax has been with the Dodgers. And, sort of telling the story of American Jewry moving from New York to LA mid-century as well.
I say this not to dehumanize him, but he is very much sort of he is almost a mascot. He represents a lot of things very visibly for both the Dodgers and, as you said, the Jewish community. If the only thing missing is dating Marilyn Monroe, I know that was Arthur Miller in the Jewish sense and Joe DiMaggio in the baseball sense, but he could have brought them all together. There's a quick little literary corner for you. The death of a salesman reference in the Menschwarmers this week.
Yeah. But great to see Sandy out there, and I hope we don't see him at the World Series next year, because I hope it's the Jays and not the Dodgers next year. But we'll see. There has been a little bit of baseball news in terms of offseason news. The first is that I think we talked about this before. Alex Bregman opted out.
Friend of the pod, Alex Bregman
opted out of his deal. He has not signed anywhere yet, but he is a free agent.
He's rumored to stay in Boston, from what I understand. Our other friend of the pod, Gabrielle Starr, I'm sure enjoys covering him locally very much. Alex had a great year and is definitely going to sign a big contract. I don't think the Blue Jays are going to be on him, which is a little unfortunate. But
Yeah,
hopefully
last year
we'll
it
get to
seemed
see
like
him a lot.
they were last year it seemed like the Jays were a little bit in on Bregman, but not all the way.
And with the emergence
Obviously,
of Ernie Clement, it seems third base might be okay for now.
right. Two other pieces of news I want to mention is that Gabe Kapler's been promoted to be the general manager of the Miami Marlins. Gabe had a long playing career. I think it was probably 12, 13 years in Major League Baseball as a player. Really pretty solid career. Obviously, if you make it that long in the pros, you have to be pretty decent. He managed two stints. He managed the Phillies for 2 years and then the Giants for 3 years. He won the NL Manager of the Year in 2021. I can't remember if it was fired or mutual after 2023. But I think around the end of the season, they got rid of Gabe, and he moved to Miami to be in the front office, and now he's promoted. Now he's so sort of
Another Jewish story, moving from the Northeast to Miami
exactly.
with a little California in between.
Exactly. Perfect. So he will be running the Miami Marlins now, which I feel like is a challenging job because they're such they've been so bipolar in their existence between spending money and not spending money.
And
they
winning
do have a new
when
owner.
they do. They've won the World Series twice in their 30 years of existence, which is amazing.
Oh, absolutely. They do have a they do have a new owner now. Bruce Sherman bought the team from Jeffrey Luria. I believe he is Jewish. I can't say 100%, but his name is Bruce Sherman, and he's from New York.
Those are hints. He's a Mike Jacobs All-Star owner, if he's not.
If he's not, but I'm pretty sure he is born in Queens, made a lot of money in wealth management.
Yes, he got his MBA from Baruch College.
Okay.
Which would imply, city.
Pretty good sign.
CUNY, yeah.
So hopefully Gabe Kapler is equipped with new. Hopefully Bruce Sherman has new owner syndrome, which usually means wanting to spend an insane amount of money needlessly, and
Yep.
Gabe Kapler will be the beneficiary of that. I assume as a GM, it must be more fun to just hand out contracts than have to grind through tape to figure out who's a guy you can get for minimum who might be slightly better than everybody else thinks he is.
Yep.
Moneyballing things is there's some
no,
romance
that's all
to that.
good and fun, but it's
but
also
throwing money at ball players even better.
Yeah, it's really fun to be Steve Cohen or David Tepper or somebody who's just bought a team and wants to throw it around a little bit. At least when if Gabe Kapler can do that. So that I looking up a little bit, Bruce Sherman is a founder of the Holocaust Museum of South Florida. That would imply that he has some Jewish connections.
Pretty fair to call him Jewish, I think, after that. And if we're wrong, we haven't insulted anyone. There's no insult in being incorrectly reported as Jewish.
Yeah, if any of our Miami listeners could let us know. But that means, we've got an almost all Jewish front office, at least so far, and almost, a largely Jewish front office in Miami, and that's good to see.
Yeah. And speaking of Miami, we should say the one other piece of news I want to mention, which is that the World Baseball Classic is happening next March. It will be taking place in Miami, or at least in part will be taking place in Miami. And Team Israel is, of course, competing, given its success at the previous World Baseball Classics. And they just announced new manager, Brad Osmus, is taking over from Ian Kinsler as the manager for the next WBC. So Brad was I think he was the bench coach in 2023. And I believe he played for Team Israel at some point in the past. But he will now be the manager, which is great.
He's most recently been the bench coach for the New York Yankees. Right. He's previously managed the Tigers and the Angels, and actually had a previous stint as the manager of the Israeli national team. So he's coming back after managing the Israeli national team. He was a coach on the 2023 team. Under Ian Kinsler, and it looks like, and he also managed the national team when they qualified for the 2013 Classic. So he was their first sort of manager on this global international scale. He was one of the first, American Jews to play for Team Israel after it was announced that they could do so. When they sort of, followed when they made the WBC rules to have heritage instead of citizenship, Brad Osmus is one of the first American players to play for Team Israel. So he's been involved with the team for almost 20 years now. And it's pretty cool to see him, taking back over in a really, really big and exciting time.
Very cool. And, I think we're going to see some announcements coming in the next month or two. Maybe Bregman, maybe Freed, crossing our fingers over
Fingers
those.
crossed. Maybe Dylan Cease, guys who
Yeah.
might play for Team Israel. We'll see. Brad Osmus has previously said that he has taken the day off on Yom Kippur to atone for a bad hitting season. So hopefully he, God comes back and blesses him. Or sorry, I don't want to say. I'll say Hashem comes back and blesses him with some all-star caliber players.
Yeah, I think that's very exciting. So we'll see that, and we'll obviously keep an eye on that as we move to the hot stove in the baseball offseason. Before we go, I think we want to check in a little bit on hockey and basketball, things that have been going on. I think the biggest story from basketball that we've seen this year in terms of Jewish players is the ascendance of Deni Avdija.
Likely or possible high-ranking most improved player. I mean, he's most approved by this podcast, but most improved player coming up high in the rankings.
So he is third in the odds for most improved player this year. Just to reel off his stats a little bit, he's scoring 26 points a game, 6.5 rebounds, five assists per game. Pretty good shooting. Probably his best shooting year. Shooting 375 from three. Almost 500 field goal percentage overall. Like, that's pretty solid. Portland is a team that is probably not going to compete for a high playoff spot. They may compete for a play-in game. And Deni being in the playoffs would be very cool. It would also be extremely cool if he made the All-Star team, which is very possible. And this year, the All-Star format is changing to be USA versus World.
And there's two World teams and one USA team. I think the other
way around. I think there's two American teams and one World team. So It's unclear. I don't know if they've announced all of it yet. I think it's like at least 10 players or whatever on the World team. And you got to figure, I mean, obviously we know, Luka Doncic,
Shai Gilgeous-Alexander,
Nikola Jokic,
trying to think of more European players.
No, I mean, there's I'm just saying there are guys who are all NBA pretty much year in, year out who will absolutely be on the World team. But, I think Deni scoring 26 a game, the leader of Portland right now, there's definitely a spot for him. Possibly. There's definitely a possible spot for him in the All-Star game. And he would be the first Israeli player to make the All-Star game. That would be extremely cool.
It would be extremely cool. It seems... we think it might be unlikely, but stranger things have happened. Deni, like you said, it's a team that he could be leading to the playoffs. He is pretty much the undisputed leader of the team. Also stepping up while they're having some pretty serious coaching issues right now. As sort of not related, but right now their coach has very recently been arrested. Been arrested for his role, I guess, in a potentially fixed gambling situation, fixed poker game. So, without that coaching consistency, it's important for the players to step up. And I mean, amazingly, and as we all saw coming, of course, Deni Avdija has really done it. He's playing great.
Yeah, just to quickly check in on the two Brooklyn rookies we talked about earlier.
The Brookies? No, not quite.
The Brook rookies, Ben Seraph and Danny Wolf. Both have had pretty limited playing time. Ben Seraph has started 5 games for the Nets, but both have been sort of back and forth with the G League team. Not unexpected for rookies. I think there's big holes in both of their games that can be improved upon through more playing time rather than just sort of contributing. But Brooklyn, not exactly the most competitive team this year. They've only won 2 games. So I do think we will definitely see more Danny Wolf and more Ben Seraph as the year goes on. And, we'll continue to check in on them as they accrue more NBA minutes.
I'm amazed as minor leagues go, the level of available coverage, highlights, and statistics from the NBA to the G League is really remarkable. The drop off of how easy it is to get as much NBA coverage you want and how hard it is to get any information on current G League happenings whatsoever. It's really a big difference.
That's interesting. That's a fair point. I mean, I would say the Raptors G League team, the Raptors 905, who play very nearby, less than an hour away from downtown Toronto. I don't think I see the games on TV very, very often.
No,
Like
they're not.
sometimes they are, like, but it's pretty rare. I don't
And,
know.
Toronto Marlies games are on TV. You sort of know what's happening with them. The Buffalo baseball team, you always sort of know what's happening with. But the G League, it's kind of hard to really keep a finger on the pulse. Maybe it just feels very transient as a league.
Right. We've talked about this before, but like it's so funny that like the drop off is so minimal because if you're talking about the NBA, which is say 15 players per team, 30 teams, the top 450, 500 guys with injuries, let's say, and the G League being the guys who are, let's say, 600 to 900 best in the world, more or less, rookies, whatever. It's like they're pretty good. They're all guys who got drafted in the second round or undrafted free agents or whatever. Like it's such a high quality. It's going to be less polished than the best of the best, but like it's like the 99.98 percentile as opposed to 99.99 of people older than high school playing basketball. So if you're in Long Island, which I'm just going to assume some of our listeners are, go see Deni and Ben. I mean, if you're in a different part of Long Island, you can go see them when they play at Barclays. But if you're closer to if you're closer to Uniondale, then you can see them when they play for the Long Island Nets.
So moving on, a couple of big news. We're going to switch from the hard court to the slippery, slightly harder court. Coming soon after a big surgery is the long-awaited return of another friend of the pod, Zach Hyman. Zach has, as we've talked about before, his career has taken off significantly since he left Toronto to Edmonton. But he came back for the first time on Saturday. The long-awaited return. He got a point. He scored an assist and had 11 hits. Which is pretty spectacular for his first game back. That is like truly human wrecking ball stuff and shows that Zach was really itching to get out there. There are some players that don't have 11 hits in a season, especially ones who score as many as him. It's a pretty remarkable thing. One thing to mention is, as any popular Canadian Jewish athlete would, the benevolent specter of Zach Hyman hung very high over that UJA event. We were asked a lot about him. People talked a lot about him. A lot of players looked up to him. A lot of chat athletes looked up to him. Spoke to a friend of his and, another Jewish pro hockey player, Ethan Warwick. Most of it talking about how Zach's a truly wonderful guy who deserves every piece of success he's getting. And to see him come back after, a tough surgery, missing the Stanley Cup Finals last year, to explode with 11 hits in his first game back. Like, that is remarkable. You average 11 hits a game for a season. You are breaking a lot of records.
Absolutely. And, we should say he obviously had to exit the Stanley Cup Finals last year because he dislocated his wrist. Who knows if that would have made the difference for the Oilers. Obviously, they're itching to get back there. Missing the first quarter of the season is tough. And, Zach's been I think pretty much, day in, day out, played almost every game of the last 4 seasons. And probably going back beyond that to the COVID years. He's a guy who can get out there every day and contribute.
Oh, he's a gamer. He doesn't, there's a famous quote from Mike Babcock who said we'd win the Stanley Cup if we had 23 Zach Hymans.
It's pretty good.
He works his tuchus off, to borrow a phrase. But it's looking pretty good. Unfortunately, sort of on the other side of that same injury coin, we've got yet another, I guess, minor TBD out for 8 weeks. Injury to Jack Hughes. He was put on the long-term IR today. He's going to be out for 8 weeks. He is having really trouble staying healthy. He's an incredible player when he is healthy. But, the Devils are currently leading the Eastern Conference, and he is leading the Devils.
He was off to a great start to the season. He had 20 points in his first 17 games. So right up there on the top of the points list and the goals list. And unfortunately, it's going to be a long stretch without him. We'll see how he can get back into it come the spring. Ramping things up for the playoffs, assuming the Devils are going to have a pretty decent run. His
Yeah.
brother Quinn Hughes is having a pretty solid season again. 19 assists, second only to Connor McDavid, and third in the betting odds for the Norris Trophy, which he of course
Yeah.
won. I think 2 years ago, in the 2023-2024
You know,
season.
it's
So hoping to
what's really interesting about
hoping to see him carry Vancouver into the playoffs.
What's really interesting about Quinn is he, every year profiles as one of those guys. He every year profiles as one of those guys who, when he's on the ice, his team is one of the best in the league, and when he's not on the ice, they're one of the worst. He's just an incredibly dynamic player
Right.
that until he got hurt last year, had a really good chance at being an MVP nominee, if not a winner. He was having a terrific season and was sort of undoubtedly marching to another Norris Trophy until he hurt his legs. So hopefully he has a little bit of better injury luck than his brother, and continues to lead Vancouver. As much as it pains me to say, because I don't like the Canucks very much, I love Quinn and I love watching him play. And we know how much he's sort of inspired another generation of young players. Now, a lot of defensemen, Jewish, Zev Buim being an example, Zane Parekh, who's sort of the number one young defenseman on Calgary. They've both talked about how they've modeled their game after Quinn Hughes. It is very control heavy. It is very dynamic. It is very skating heavy, and it's very cool to watch, especially see a Jewish player not just be a Jewish icon, but sort of a style icon. It's unique. Sandy Koufax would be another example of that. Not to get the comparison too high, but somebody who plays the game their way and fairly dominantly is pretty exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of Zeev Buium, he has made his debut, his NHL debut this year, and gotten into 20 games with the Minnesota Wild. Now he has 10 points on the year. Pretty solid effort for a rookie. Not getting a huge amount of ice time. I think he's probably a third liner, right, or third line defense. It's different with defense than lines exactly, but I think we're going to see him contribute and continue to grow as a player. He's only 20 years old. I don't even think he's turned 20 yet, so there's a ton of growth for him. And it's very obviously very young to be getting some NHL time is very good for him. And one other person who plays for a team you hate, given you mentioned that before, and checking on Jeremy Swayman, who's having a very solid year as the primary goalie for the Boston Bruins, who I think are leading the division or very close to leading the division. Jeremy's had gotten 8-5 record, a save percentage over 900, which is decent enough to be winning games, obviously. And we'll see how he does. Obviously Boston has had some disappointing finishes the last couple of years, and I think this is probably everyone is sort of doing that trying to do that Florida model of like taking it easy and then really being good for the playoffs.
It really only matters after Christmas.
It's hard to do because it's just like with any physical sport, especially, it's just like, well, what are you going to do? You can't tell guys like, hey, don't play hard, don't skate hard. It's like tanking in football. It just doesn't work. Like if you're going to lay down as an offensive lineman, you're going to die. So like,
I think it's like you experiment, you try new things, you mess with the lines a little bit, like you focus on process rather than outcome. And then once that's ready, come Christmas time is when you really have to, set it up. Florida, I wonder, they might just be doing it for rest. They've made it to the finals 3 seasons in a row, which is an incredible thing. Unfortunately, with Zach Hyman coming on the raw end the last 2 seasons, or the tough end of that the last 2 seasons. But, with any luck, we'll see good outcome. With any luck, Zach can get it again, though they're resting for the first half of the season, as you said. It's tough. It has to be mental. I can't imagine it's easy to just turn it on. So you got to keep on focusing on something. But it allows guys like Jack Hughes, freak broken wine glass in his apartment, finger injury aside. It helps him. It helps teams like that get some experience at the top and start playing really well, and lets the young players shine a little bit. Your Zevs Buim and your Jax Hughes. Before we leave ice, despite Jamie's protests, they are playing a 3rd season of the PWHL starting this weekend. Actually, on the first game is Friday the 21st, and there aren't a lot of Jews in the league except for the Boston goaltending tandem of Aaron Frankel and Abby Levy, both Jews. both playing for Boston. Boston has not made the playoffs in a while. Well, either of the last 2 years. But with the expanded league, they might have a chance this year. Who knows? Boston's lost their captain, Hillary Knight. But with the multiple Jewish tandem, Abby Levy being the Team USA goalie, recent world champion goalie, she's going to get a lot of playing time, and Aaron Frankel as her backup. All good for an all Jewish tandem. You don't see that too often. So go Fleet.
Yeah, some of the PWHL team names are really leave a little to the imagination.
Yeah, I like the Vancouver Golden Eyes. I wonder if they're trying to go for like a James Bond thing. There were rumors that the Seattle team would be called the Seattle Sockeyes, which would have been pretty cool, even though there was a league with no fighting allowed.
It's not a bad name. Yeah.
But Sockeye is like a good hockey name. But the Vancouver Golden Eyes is pretty wild. Like I hope their goal horn is like a James Bond sound.
Yeah. The Fleet play out at the Tsongas Arena at UMass Lowell. So if you're in the Lowell area, not sure if there's a ton of Jews in that part of greater Boston, but
if they played in Newton,
there'd
be, if they played in Newton or Hopkinton or Brookline, it would be quite a different story. Maybe that's where they'll live.
Right.
Maybe that's where Abby Levy's going to live.
But if you go to UMass Lowell or you're in the Lowell area, check it out. Check out the Boston Fleet. Before we go, one more thing. Want to check in on someone we've talked about a lot on this podcast, but haven't talked about recently, which is Jake Retzlaff and the Tulane Green Wave. Tulane, a very, very Jewish university in New Orleans. We had a great guest, Isaac Popper, a few months ago to tell us the history of that. I would encourage you to check it out because Tulane is on the path, on the derech to make the college football playoffs.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. And Jake Retzlaff, and Jake Retzlaff is their starting quarterback, has been integral to their season. He's been a huge part of it. He's been running in touchdowns like no other. It's been really impressive. And I'll give you the situation right now. Tulane is they have 2 losses, which you might say, oh well, then they're gone. But it's a 12-team expanded college football playoff,
extended playoffs, baby.
And there is one automatic selection for a team from what's called the Group of Five. Conferences. So not the biggest conferences, but the next tier down, of which one of them is the American Conference, which Tulane is in. Tulane is currently tied for first place in the American Conference. There is a conference championship game. Basically what they need to do is they need to win their last 2 games against Temple and Charlotte, neither of whom are particularly good, Charlotte especially. They will then need to beat, probably in all likelihood, Navy, for the championship game.
Yes, Navy or North Texas.
Possibly
is the other option.
Yeah, possibly North Texas. Most likely Navy. They have not played Navy this year. So again, it would be sort of a fresh. And then the winner of that game might go to the college football playoff.
The rankings like Tulane. They're currently ranked 24th in the country.
Yep.
Which is ahead of Navy and ahead of North Texas. For those of you who don't know what North Texas is, it is one of the schools in Dallas that isn't TCU or St. Mary's.
Not St. Mary's. Southern Methodist.
Southern Methodist. Excuse me. Southern Methodist. St. Mary's is in Halifax. Yeah. Excuse me. I don't know much about University of North Texas other than I've been in one of their hospitals. Oh. But not a lot of experience with the university or their football team. So I'm hoping I won't have to learn it while following Retzlaff's leading Tulane. If any other Tulane fans or media members like we've had before are listening to the show, let us know. We'd love to hear what it's like on the ground at Tulane football. Speaking of green waves in football, a very interesting-ish Jewish story about recent New York Jet Adonai Mitchell.
Oh, yeah.
He is not Jewish. He has recently been traded to New York. And as a lot of religious New York Jets fans wondered, with a man named Adonai, can they even say his name? Do you have to put the line through it while writing Adonai Mitchell in a box score? I've noticed that in a lot of places he's referred to as AD Mitchell, which is sort of his nickname. And I'm wondering if that is sort of a conspiracy in brackets by the sports writers to keep the religious Jewish fans from having to say his name, from having to say Hashem Mitchell or Yahweh Mitchell or Yahweh Mitchell or so on.
It's a tough test. Yeah, it's a tough test for a guy named Adonai in New York. I did see. I mean, I think you sent me the clip of a rabbi or some yeshivish scholar explaining that if it's just somebody's name,
an Amare, somebody adjacent to Amare with a background that looks like Amare Stoudemire.
Yeah, that since his name is Adonai, we're not referring to God. That it's okay to say his name, but
yeah, because it is accidental. It is not God itself. We all know that Adonai Mitchell is the football player, not the God in green.
But at some point, and
it would be great if he was a bit of a better player. Then he could have like a nickname of God.
Right. At some point though, like, the increasing use of, I don't know, Jewish names sometimes by non-Jews, at some point someone is going to give their child the name of the tetragrammaton. I don't mean they're going to be called like Tetragrammaton Smith, but they are going to be those 4 letters, Smith or whatever, and they're going to make a Big 4 sports league or be someone that is notable in the world. And that's going to happen. That will happen at some point in the future. And the Jewish community will have to decide how to deal with that, I guess.
I mean, the closest we have right now, he's not Jewish, but he's created by Jews, there's a basketball player this year named Chandler Bing.
Oh, right.
That has to be on purpose. Someone would have had to have made that choice. So someone whose last name is maybe the second 2 characters can make their first name the first 2 in a similar move.
Maybe. And, again, when Tetragrammaton Smith is starring for the Chicago Bulls, that's when we'll have to call it an end to the podcast. That'll be the last one.
Surprised Key and Peele didn't figure that one out.
Right.
In the East-West Bowl.
Yeah. That would have been a good one.
I mean, there wasn't an overwhelmingly Jewish name in that one yet, but maybe there will be soon.
I feel like they could have kept making that skit forever, but
oh yeah,
the Hingle McCringleberry the Hingle McCringleberry celebration has been done several times in the NFL this year, including getting penalties for it. So they continue to be prevalent. Anyways, let's
and a lot of Dan Smith BYUs continue to come back to the league over and over and over again.
Let's leave it there for now. We'll be back with you soon with more information about Jews and sports and everything going on in that world. We got the Olympics coming up in the new year. We're excited about that. Hopefully have some Olympic interviews coming up in the not too distant future. And if you guys know, if anybody of our listeners know Jews who are qualifying or attempting to qualify for the Olympics right now, shoot us an email or find us on Twitter. You can always find us on Twitter at Menschwarmers, and you can email us through the Canadian Jewish News. We're brought to you by the Canadian Jewish News and produced by Michael Freeman. You can find all our podcasts and articles on the CJN's website, thecjn.ca. See you soon.